Most of you, I've read the Bill of Rights, I've read the Declaration of Independence, some of you read it every year. I've even read most of our Constitution, and I have a pretty good idea about what they say about our freedoms. Things like independent self-rule, social equality, the right of all people to participate equally in politics, talk about civil liberty, all of those things that are so important. And I've given a lot of thought to these writings and the idea of being free in the past week, since I agreed to talk today and decided that this would be a good topic. But after a great deal of research about all of these things, what I went back to was an old daily word. And this one was from May 14th, 2016, so earlier this year. And it said, being free is both a reality and a feeling. And the reality is something experienced in the world around me. The ability to worship the way I choose, travel where I want, speak my mind without fear of prosecution or retribution. But then there's the feeling of freedom, of being free. It's an experience within my mind and my heart and my spirit. So there's an external aspect of being free, and then there's an internal aspect when we think about it. So I also, in preparation for this, did a really unscientific survey of friends and family and acquaintances and some famous people, and I asked them to share their take on the idea of being free. And I asked them, don't analyze those thoughts first. Just what does being free mean to you? And those interviewed include people like an artist, a musician, a veterinary doctor, a dishwasher, a body worker, a photographer, an engineer, a politician, a poet, a philosopher, and even an attorney. And not one of them, not even one of them, spoke about politics when asked about what does being free mean to you. They didn't speak about the Constitution, or nationalism, or religion, or battles for freedom. No one spoke about those things that our daily word referred to as the reality of freedom, those external things. And none, thank goodness, were as blunt and graphic as the French philosopher that I read about, Denis Diderot, who said, "Men will never be free until the last king is strangled with the entrails of the last priest." Oh, that's so harsh. So harsh. Okay, now if you don't remember anything else from this talk, you're going to remember that, right? Okay. Rather, each of the people that I spoke with got very personal on the subject of being free. And sometimes their words sounded pretty simplistic, and other times they sounded really pretty deep. But in reality, when I thought about it after the fact, what I heard from each person was deep, and it was simple, and it was complex. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what they said about being free. One of the first people I talked to said, retirement from my job, being free with the time to follow my passions or rest my bones as I choose. Another, a professional that I spoke with, said, being able to do what's the right thing, the ethical way, when others in my profession are sticking together to ensure that the most money is made. Acting with integrity, even when others disagree. She said, my integrity is sometimes all that I have left, the very last inch of me. But within that last inch, I feel free. I can make those decisions. And it kind of goes along with something that the author Robert Heinlein, maybe some of you read, said, I am free no matter what rules surround me. If I find them tolerable, I tolerate them. If I find them too obnoxious, I break them. I am free because I know that I alone am morally responsible for everything that I do. Robert Heinlein. Another person said, being able to make my own decisions and my own mistakes. This is kind of in alignment with something that the musician Patti Smith said, being free to right the wrong
That's okay. So freedom is not worth having if it doesn't include the freedom to make mistakes. Would some of you agree with that? Yeah. Now, a therapist friend of mine said, being free is being able to have my own thoughts and opinions. And if I choose, being able to reveal my own self and my perceptions and my emotions. That's what freedom meant to her. It kind of was in alignment with something that the author Virginia Woolf said. She said, lock up your libraries if you like, but there is no gate, no lock, no bolt that you can set upon the freedom of my mind. Amen to that. And then there's my nephew, Aaron. Aaron's 27 years old. He works as a dishwasher. But Aaron's also a gifted musician, and this mandolin that I played a moment ago sounded so beautiful. He designed it and he built it. It's not just a dishwasher. But Aaron said, he talked about being free to be who you really are. And he gave me a quote from another musician, Jim Morrison. Anybody familiar with Jim Morrison? Yeah. Morrison said, the most important kind of freedom is to be what you really are. You trade your reality for a role. You trade in your sense for an act. You give up your ability to feel and in exchange put on a mask. There can't be any large-scale revolution until there's a personal revolution on an individual level. It's got to happen inside first. Jim Morrison. Now, another old friend of mine gave me this important take on being free. He said, I became free when I forgave. I was imprisoned by some old grievances of the past and the new business of life. Really couldn't go on when I was locked into the outrage and the tit for tat of being angry. And forgiveness finally freed me of that, the forgiver, from that nightmare. Really called it a nightmare. And I think we could probably talk about that topic all day. Being free when we forgive, but I'm not going to. A couple of other people they spoke about the connection between fear and freedom. I think maybe talked a little bit about that in tomorrow's daily word. They said, when I expose myself to my deepest fears, it could be fear of public speaking, fear of heights, fear of being alone. When I really expose myself to those things, after that the fear has no power and I become free. That's an important take on being free. And people a long time ago gave thought and credence to that. And even Aristotle said, he who has overcome his fears will truly be free. And whether we talk about it much or not, one of the biggest fears that I think a lot of us have had is the fear of death. One brave soul said to me, who I interviewed, we're not going to live forever. But it often takes a long time to get that, really to learn that. But when you do, everything changes inside and you're not the same. And this can be a realization that is catastrophic and it can be crushing, but it also can be really, really liberating. It's about being free. End of quote. Now, my sister, Susie, she was a year and a week younger than me, and she died a couple of weeks ago. And in her last 2 years especially, she had gone through a lot of really intense suffering of body and mind and emotions. And I knew that. I'd spoken with her. But it was when I read one of her journals, just in the past week, that I came to understand something more about her. How she felt about being free. And on that reality level that the Daily Word differentiated, freedom for her was being able to make her own decisions about her body, not leaving that to the medical profession. And I couldn't always agree with her decisions, but I certainly respected them. On the feeling level, however, she wrote, I think profoundly in her journal, these words: "Our bodies are temporary houses for spirit, and our spirit continues on. Our spirit is what brings true happiness." And she also wrote about paths to freedom. She wrote about that several times in her journal. She said that moments of silence and stillness allow us to find our balance and allow our creative spirit to flourish. And when one is in that creative, beautiful creative space and connected to the creative force, one is in a state of being free. Susie Pollard. Another brave and wonderful spirit who passed on a couple of years ago, Maya Angelou. You know her as a writer and an activist, and as a poet she wrote The Caged Bird. If you bear with me, I'm just going to read her one poem. "A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wings in the orange sun's rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. And the caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still. And his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But the caged bird stands on the grave of dreams, his shadow shouts on a nightmare scream, his wings are clipped, and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom." Now, my own personal take on freedom stems from a lot of teachings from some really wise Buddhist teachers. And one of them wrote these words: "Letting go gives us freedom. And freedom is the only condition for happiness. If in our heart we still cling to anything, whether it's anger or anxiety or possessions, we cannot be free." Another fine author, Toni Morrison, wrote a book called The Song of Solomon, and she said, similar message: "You want to fly? You got to give up the shit that weighs you down." You want to fly? You got to give up the shit that weighs you down. I won't say that. You got it. So, to me, being free, I think, is about letting go. Letting go of the opinions of others. Letting go of the opinions about ourselves, too. Letting go of those things that lie beyond our control. Letting go of the clutter of things and thoughts. Letting go of our anger and our grievances that don't permit life to proceed anew. Letting go of our pride that separates us. Letting go of our fears that chain us. Letting go of the illusion that you're going to live forever. And maybe most importantly, letting go of the illusion that we are not infinite in nature. Can I get an amen to that? All right. So I've pretty much decided that freedom is our natural state. We came in free, and it's the way we're going to end this life. And so it's everything in the middle that tends to complicate things. Bog us down and just complicate. It's all the details. So I want to pose the question to each of you right now. What does being free mean to you? You know, there's no right answer, but just please make it personal. And since I got a couple minutes, I want to open it up. If anybody else has anything to share that I haven't touched on or is really meaningful to you, what does being free mean to you?